Hi, today I want to talk a little bit about my approach to AI-assisted coding and specifically why I don't like using some of these coding agents that I see around, like Cursor, Cline, there's Copilot, there's a bunch of these. I think Cursor is probably the most popular. And I'm not telling anyone else how to do things, but I'm just going to share my perspective and hopefully give you something to think about. And before I start, I think that this type of an approach probably is the future. But right now, there's several reasons why I stay away that we'll get to. And I'll go over my approach and what I do instead. So to do that, let's look at a example code base that I have here. And what this is a dashboard. Okay, so here's my dashboard. Basically, what this does is it connects to a little Bluetooth low energy camera. It takes a picture every so often, and then saves it to this gallery. You can see that I have a bunch of samples in here. But let's say we want to make a change to this. So you can see this page is really long. So what I want to do is add a pagination um, to that page. So we're going to try two different approaches here, and the first is going to be the AI agent assisted approach. And so we're going to use Cline for this. It's pretty similar if you're using Cursor or one of the other tools, but Cline gives you a nice graph of what it's doing, which will be useful for the point that I'm making. So let's ask it, add pagination to the dashboard. We should see 50 items per page with the most recent at the top. Okay, that's going to be our prompt, and we're going to let that go. So Cline is nice because it keeps track of your cost up here and tells you how much context you're using right here, and also gives you a quick visual guide to what it's doing. So the gray boxes here are assistant responses. That's essentially it making plans and keeping track of where it's at and what it needs to do next. The yellow is reading files from the project. So you can see here it read the web routes file, it read the index.html, and then it read the database handler. It actually didn't need to read the database handler. It really only needed these two files, but it doesn't know that going in. So it looks at what it thinks might be the files. And if it doesn't find what it needs, it'll keep looking until it finds it. Now the blue is actually writing code. So you can see it's written some code to changes to web routes, written some code changes to the index, written more changes to the index, and more changes to the index. So what it's probably doing is updating the HTML, then it's updating the CSS and updating the JavaScript. And you can see that here. So it's going along. It's already used 15 cents and it's still making changes. And you can see that we've used about 25,000 tokens. And that's not 25,000 tokens in total. That is every time a new message gets sent, that entire context is sent again. So 31,000, 35,000 gets sent this time. So it's not just sending like 5,000 tokens per chunk, it's actually sending the entire context of the conversation again. And so this token usage can get used up pretty quickly. Now it's asking to start the server because it wants to test, and I'll go ahead and start it and just tell it the server is already running. Okay, and now it's going to go start testing to see if its implementation worked. Okay, it has the wrong address here. It's reading the config file to get the correct address. There it goes. I didn't need to tell it. Okay, there it goes. And now it's going to use this page. Now I can see, I'm not seeing pagination on it. We can go look at it ourselves. Yeah, I'm not seeing, it does say 1 of 50 of 702. I don't have pagination controls up here. Oh, but we do have them down at the bottom. Okay. And that appears to be working. But if we wanted to let Cline test it, we could let it continue to go. It's going to scroll down a little bit on the page, and it's going to keep going back and forth. Let me scroll a little bit more. Let me scroll a little bit more. Let me scroll a little bit more. It's going to go back and forth, and you can see our cost is up to 48 cents, 49 cents. We're about at 50 cents now. It's continuing to go. We're up at 60 cents, or 62 cents, and it has now reached the bottom of the page. It cost us 25 cents to have it scroll down to the bottom of the page, basically, 23 cents. Now it's going to click next and confirm that it's working, and it's working. Now it's wanting to scroll up. It's probably going to cost us another 25 cents to have it scroll to the top of the page. And just let it go here. So it's thinking and planning, then looking at the browser, thinking and planning, looking at the browser, just scrolling up a little bit at a time. We're at 78 cents, 81 cents, 86 cents. It's still just scrolling up. Sure costing us a lot of money for it to just scroll up. Okay, it's all the way to the top now. Perfect. Now it says that it's confirming that the numbers that it's showing are correct. Page 1, page 2, and now it's telling me task is completed. Great, and giving me a summary of the changes that it made. So that took a few minutes, and it cost us $1.04, almost 5 cents, to make that change. Now I'm gonna and let's look at what it was doing here. So we can see that writing code was only 3, 4 of these blocks, and all the rest of these are it thinking, planning, scrolling pages to confirm that it's working, etc., and then finally it's done. So only 4 of these are actually writing code for us. So let's try a different approach here. So I'm going to go back to my project. I'm going to delete the changes that it made because we're going to make them again. And what I'm going to do is come over here, and I'm going to use this command code sum. And this is a little tool I made. I've made a lot of tools. Most of them I don't use, but this one I use every day, and I do keep it up to date. And to show you what it does, it's easier for me to just run it. But just to let you know, it's available here at this URL. If you do want to use this, you don't need to, but I think it's going to demonstrate something important here. So I'm going to type code sum. And what it does is it gives me an outline of the project and all the files in the project. And I can use my arrow keys here to go between pages and go down to different files, and I can hit spacebar to select or deselect files. So I already have web routes selected here and my index.html, and those are the 2 files that we're concerned with. So I'm going to leave those selected. I'm going to hit enter. Then it's going to offer to create a compressed summary. I don't need that, so I'm just going to hit no. And now what that has done is it's created this little folder, summary files, or it would create it if it wasn't already there. But it's updated this file, codesummary.md. So this is a markdown file, and you can see that it contains the project root. It contains a tree of all of the files in the project, and then it contains the full code for all of those files that I selected. And you can see it's about 487 lines here. So I'm just going to copy this, and then I'm going to go over to my AI chat application. This is an application called Libre Chat, and it's a free self-hosted application. And essentially, this allows you to interact with LLM models from multiple providers. So you can hook it up to OpenAI, Anthropic, and several other ones. And then you can host this on your own computer. And if you hook it up, you can access your chats from anywhere. And I like to use this. So we're using LibreChat, and I have it set to Claude Sonnet 4 today. And I'm going to paste in that code that, or that summary that was created by CodeSum. And then let's give it the same prompt that we gave Cline. Give it the exact same prompt here. And hit enter. So here it goes. And I usually don't include a system prompt, but if I do, it's usually something basic like, only provide, or, I'll ask it something like, if I didn't provide the file you need to change in the context, ask for that file before proceeding, something like that. Sometimes I'll ask it to always respond with the full contents of the files for clarity, because sometimes it'll want to do like just show you a couple of changes and then you have to figure out where to put them. So I just want the full files. So sometimes I'll tell it to do that in the system prompt. But here I haven't told it anything. The files are fairly short, so it'll probably just do that anyway. So we're going to go to web routes. It's given us this new web routes file, and we're going to paste that in. Okay. And then it's given us a new index.html. We're going to copy that and paste that in. Oops. Templates index. And it looks like it's still writing. And I can see there's a stop button. So it's still writing the index.html file. So that's okay. We'll just wait. And it's done. So let's grab that again. Paste it over. Okay, we got it. And then I'm just going to test this myself. So I'm going to first make sure the server is restarted. And then we can click here and see it. Okay, we are seeing, again, it's showing 1 of 50 of 702 images, and we have our pagination down at the bottom here. And it appears to be working. Okay, so now let's break down the difference in cost. So I'm going to use a tokenizer here from OpenAI, and this may not be exactly accurate, but it'll be fairly close in counting the tokens that we used. So first our input tokens. Copy that. So 3,307 input tokens, okay? And I have a little cost calculator here, so 3307, right? 3307, okay. And then let's look at our output tokens. Copy that. How many tokens were in our output? 4734. So 4734. And then the Anthropic API cost. I'm going to look at the pricing real quick for the API, Claude Sonnet 4. So we have for prompts under 200,000 tokens, that applies to us, $3 for 1,000,000 input tokens and $15 for 1,000,000 output tokens. So let's put that into our calculator, 3 and 15, figure out how much we spent to make this change. 8 cents. Okay, so when we used Cline, we spent a little over $1 and change to make this change. Now to make the same change using this approach, we spent 8 cents. And honestly, it was probably faster because we didn't have to wait for it to make a plan and go through all of those steps and everything. So this is a lot more efficient way of coding, in my opinion. It's faster, and it is a lot cheaper. And even if you're not paying per token, if you're paying like $20 a month for some amount of usage, you're going to use up that usage quicker. Someone's paying for those tokens, and so you're going to be using more. The only reason you would use agent is if you're not paying for it and someone else doesn't mind paying for it. Um, But let's look at another thing that's going on here. There is something called context rot. And essentially what that means is the more tokens you feed an LLM, the worse the output becomes. And this affects Claude Sonnet 4, Gemini 2.5 Flash, GPT 4.1, modern models. The more tokens you use, the worse the output's going to become. So if you have a model and it's going through all of these steps, and it's building up all this context where it's going back and forth, making plans, reading files, all of this stuff, then you're not helping actually get good code output. Most of those things aren't helping it get good code output. It's doing a bunch of stuff in its context that is ultimately irrelevant to what it needs to be doing. So it may not make the output worse, but it's not making it any better. So it's either going to be the same quality output or it's going to be worse output because of all this additional context that the agents are adding. So just to close it off with a couple tips about how I approach coding. First of all, you can see here in my server application, I have broken things down into separate files based on different concerns. So my main application is only 26 lines of code, web routes 131 lines of code, state manager, all of these I keep really short. And that way when I'm selecting the context, um, it's gonna stay short because I don't have everything in one file. Normally, I would split up the index, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript into separate files as well because we don't always need to edit the CSS, for example. Here I left it all in one, but this is a fairly small project, so I'd probably break this up at some point in the future. So that's one thing. Keep all of your files really small. The other thing is in a conversation here, only do one change per conversation. And once you've confirmed that it works, start a new chat application and keep every chat only to one specific task. And if it implements the task and it doesn't work, you can feed the error back into the model and get an answer. And if you go back and forth 2 or 3 times and it has not fixed the problem, then go back to the original uh, question that you or the original query that you gave and reformulate it either to take a smaller chunk of the task or clarify the context in whatever way you need to try to avoid that error. Okay, so another thing you can do is if you give a query to the LLM and it gives you a bad answer, then instead of saying, you gave me a bad answer, fix this or that, go back to the original query and edit it to clarify your intention and add a little bit more context that'll help it avoid that problem in another generation. That'll help you keep your context nice and short and focused. Um, and that's about it. Uh, I really like the Claude Sonnet models right now. I find them to be the best. Gemini Pro 2.5 is also really good. And in the AI Studio, it seems to just be free. I've never run into a limit there. And again, maybe that's because I am always keeping my context short and focused, always starting a new conversation and keeping things clean in that way. So again, if you want to use that CodeSum tool, you can find it at samwanam /CodeSum on GitHub. And if you appreciate it, you can give it a star. You can install it from pip, just with pip install CodeSum. So that's it. I'd love to hear what you think. If this matters to you at all, if it changes the way you think about how you're using AI to assist you in coding, yeah, would love to hear your input. So leave it down below and we'll talk to you next time.